Hello everyone, welcome to Story Vault YouTube channel. Hope you enjoy the video. What is the scariest trust your gut feeling you felt before and glad you did so? Story 1. I got an absolutely gut-twisting, nauseating feeling and waited a few seconds before driving through the green light. Two pickup trucks slammed into each other and would have crushed me on my motorcycle. Comment. Less than a week ago, I was at an intersection waiting at a red light. Me and my pickup truck waiting to turn left, blinker on, pickup truck across the way also with his left blinker on. Light turns green. We both wait probably way longer than I've waited before. I'm not sure why. I guess to make sure he's really turning and not going straight. And that's what I'm thinking he's thinking. And what a good thing we both had the same exact thought at the exact same time. Because along comes a car flying about 80 through the red light right past us. We both probably would have been blasted. More the other guy, unfortunately, because it was his side of the street. I think we were both really caught off guard and relieved at the same time because it took a few seconds to realize what happened before we proceeded. I'll always wait to proceed after the light turns green. Just a bit. Drivers can be crazy. We never saw him coming. Story 2. I had to leave for an appointment, and for some reason I felt the urge to just sit in my car before leaving. I've sat there just looking around for 2 minutes or so. Then the feeling went away and I left. When I was on the highway, I saw a crash happen just minutes before I was supposed to be there. Truck blew a tire, hit other cars which hit other cars as well. It was a mess. 2 people died. A few others heavily injured to the hospital. I was in the traffic behind the scene for about 2 hours and was so glad I just sat in my car just staring around before leaving. I still do that sometimes, thinking back to that moment. Story 3. I was once walking down a street at night and randomly thought to myself, yikes, I'm going to get mugged. I ignored the feeling. Got mugged. Comments. I did this. I felt unsafe and thought to myself, someone is going to harm me in this place. Actually said it to me, friend with me. We ignored it. 2 minutes later, mugged at knife point. Took a wrong turn and ended up walking down a sketchy alley in New Orleans. I saw a couple dudes up ahead were eyeballing me and my wife aggressively. I said to myself, fuck their feelings. I'm out. Grabbed her arm and said, hey, I forgot something in the hotel. Right as I did a 180, I saw one dude pass a knife from one hand into the other and put it behind his back. We were far enough away that they didn't pursue, but still fucking scary. WTF. I was about to share a very similar story. I lived on Decatur St. in New Orleans for a couple years, right next to the quarter. I went on a date one night with a nice lady. We were walking down some side street, near Checkpoint Charlie's if that helps, a street a little less populated than some others. As we were walking and chatting, I noticed 2 guys a half a block away that had been eyeing us for some time. I told her all of a sudden that we should walk to a more well-lit, populated area. So we did. We stood at the entrance of a busy bar, and I told her to call a cab and go home. She did. I did the same. It could have been nothing, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't nothing. Story 4. When I was a teen, I'd make a few bucks helping a local farmer bale hay. The hay would be stacked on a trailer and towed by tractor to the barn. I usually sat on the front of the trailer on the way to the barn, but I suddenly felt like that wasn't a good place to be and I moved to the back. As soon as I did, I heard a clang. The hitch had come loose from the tractor while heading down a steep hill. I climbed down the back and easily stepped off, moments before the trailer flipped over into a ravine. Comments. I used to work on a horse breeding ranch as a side gig. Your story reminds me of one of my own. I made pretty good money at the time, $20 cash an hour, working 4 to 8 hours a day. I was in town one day picking up supplies for the owner, and I was approached by a grain silo manager. Like a co-op. The guy offered me a job while talking. He managed a co-op about 10 miles away. He offered me like $28 an hour, and I told him I'd think about it. It would have been a part-time gig, so I figured, hey, sweet, more extra money. So on what should be my first day of working for this guy, a few days later, he calls me and tells me something came up and he is not going to be able to train me that day, so to come the next day. I'm just like, okay, cool beans. A few hours later, the co-op blew up in a grain dust explosion and killed like 3 people. These people were all doing the job I would have been doing. I don't know much about farming. How does a grain dust explosion happen? Does it take a spark to ignite it like from a lit cigarette? Or is it a methane buildup in fire like in landfills? Oh man, it's my time to shine. Former grain elevator operator here. Corn and soybeans kick up a lot of dust. If you've ever watched a farmer harvest in the field and seen the combines driving, you'll have seen all the dust being kicked up. Lots of flecks of bean pods and corn husks, etc. After harvesting, they come to the elevator to drop it all off. We then dry the corn down with a massive grain dryer. This allows it to be stored long-term without going bad. This drying process in turn creates even more dust as the corn is blasted with hot air. The corn turns hard and brittle. A significant portion of it crumbles apart into dust. If you ever reached your hand into a pile of dried corn, you could easily see the corn flour sifting apart from the whole corn kernels. In the massive grain storage bins, this dust is just floating everywhere in the air over the corn. Any source of heat can cause it to ignite. Where I worked, they did a safety demonstration every year, where the guy would come out with his clear plastic box and he would stir up some corn dust in it, close the lid, and he had like a stove igniter plugged into the box. Boom. Lid would blow open. Same concept, except way greater scale. And once that flame front gets going, it travels up through the top entrance in the bin, through the conveyors to the other bins and the entire system. We had one happen in one of our elevators my last year working there. Luckily, no one was there. It happened after everyone had left for the day, but it was captured on camera, and boy was it entertaining. You could see where the explosion exited the top of the elevator, as the panel on the side of it was bent in half, but still hanging on by the catch chain. Blew all the bolts out. And that was a minor explosion. The main elevator I worked at had exploded 15 years prior to me working there. That one was bad. Had to rebuild the entire structure. But anyways, I got too long-winded. Heat can occur in these bins when wet grain, whether soybeans or corn, starts rotting just like a compost bin. What happens in compost bins with a lot of good material? They heat up. You could have hot spots in your bin, and they can get so hot that it literally just starts on fire. It could be 75 degrees out, but your temperature cables reaching into the grain could say you have a hot spot of 120 degrees. That's a bad situation. Or your aeration fans could have a bearing go out and heat up, sending sparks into the grain. A conveyor could do the same thing. Equipment failures, etc. Glad I got out of that business with all limbs intact, honestly. LOL. Story 5. Not me, my grandfather. He used to never wear his seatbelt. One day he's driving around with my mom and suddenly remarks, "I feel like I'm about to go through the windshield," and buckles in. Less than 30 seconds later, as they're going through an intersection, a car blows the red light going like 40 miles per hour and slams into my grandpa's side of the car. He walked away with nothing worse than some fractured ribs, and now he always wears his seatbelt. Comments. Last year, I had 2 coworkers almost die from not wearing their seatbelts. One hit the windshield so hard with his head that he isn't the same person anymore. I seriously think his IQ dropped 25 points. The other's head hit the "oh shit" handles and cracked his skull. Ducked him up for quite a long time. Both guys are only here today because their $80,000 new trucks had such fancy airbags everywhere. But had they just worn their ducking seatbelts? My 3-year-old was strapped in his car seat and suddenly started saying, "Lock doors, lock doors." I pressed the button to keep him happy, and just a few seconds later a drunk guy came from behind the car and tried to open the doors and get in. Ours were locked, but he went to the car in front and opened theirs and started punching the driver. The lights had just changed, so that driver tore off and I followed him, leaving the drunk guy stumbling across the road. My son was tightly belted into a chunky car seat. There's no way he could have seen behind us, and he was in the back so couldn't see the side mirrors either. Story 6. So it wasn't my gut, but my friend's. I had noticed whenever she had a bad feeling, it almost always turned out to be correct. We were going to sneak out one night and ride in the back of a friend's truck like we did sometimes. She told me she had a bad feeling, and I immediately backed out, and so did she. The others didn't listen, and that night the truck flipped with 2 of our friends in the back. They were both hospitalized for a couple of weeks. One shattered his arm so bad it never fully healed right, and one has full back scars from the road burn. Story 7. Leaving my headphones out when the Bluetooth spontaneously disconnected. A weird guy was following me home. I watched from my patio as he went up and down the street looking for me. A few weeks later, a woman has attacked in the area. Serious injuries. Comments. A good reminder for anyone to never run around with your hearing fully obstructed, for lots of reasons. Always have one ear available. Glad you're all right. So, that's the end of the video. Hit the like button and subscribe. Have a good day and see you in the next video.